For today's perspective, we have a treat. The one and only Dave Raymond. He is the original OG Phillie Phanatic. Yes, the big green monster inspired with the Muppets. This is him. This is the original mascot who got to serve Philadelphia and beyond worldwide for over 16 years as the iconic mascot who now studies and talks about all things around fun and joy and play. And we took a deep dive into how do we cultivate those things like fun, joy, and play, especially when things are hard. I hope you enjoy this episode. I am so glad that you're here for it. Dave, I'm so excited to spend time with you in conversation today. Thanks for making time for this.
Oh my gosh, same. Or as my wife says, ditto.
Ditto. I love it.
Because I've been looking forward to this and I can't wait.
Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you, I love all things around joy and happiness and merriment. And I think about you and your work and your body of work, and like you are it personified. Like you are literally joy that moves through time and space. And I'm so excited to hear and learn more about your story and the good work that you're doing.
Thank you. I just, and the platform that we're on, the podcasting that you've done such a great job with, it just opens up a whole wealth of information that we can tap into. So I'm hoping that your listeners will enjoy it. I know I'm going to.
Well, thank you very much. So to kick us off, for folks who might not know who's behind the green guy, could you tell us a wee bit about how you got started in this area around joy and happiness and play and all of the good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I had a giant green furry Muppet that led me into all of this. I believe everything I've done in my career has brought me to this place spiritually. And I feel I'm living a purposeful life, which is blessed and lucky because I know not everybody gets to.
Yeah.
But my dad was a very famous football coach. He coached at the University of Delaware for 50 years.
Wow.
He won 300 games there. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I grew up in a family that was blessed because of our small community in Newark, Delaware. Loved Delaware football, was proud of my dad.
Of course.
And I just wanted to be him. And he recognized that maybe I needed a shift in perspective because he was happy to help me be a football coach and a teacher. But he said, look, I know the owners of the Philadelphia Phillies, the major league team of Philadelphia. And he said, I can help you get a summer job. You're a sophomore. You're playing football for me. You're kind of living your dream.
Yes.
But take a look at what something else might be. He said, you can go there, work for the Phillies. That was 1976 for a 2-year internship. He said, you'll never know who you'll meet or what might happen. And then lo and behold, my third season, I went back to finish schooling and the Phillies hadn't offered me a job. And I thought, gosh, maybe I didn't do well for them.
Sure.
But they called me up early in the spring, said, look, we want you to come back. You just need to go to New York and get fitted for the costume. I said, what? So I go to New York, doing exactly what my dad would say. Do whatever they tell you to do, prove your value, then you'll be valuable. Tough football coach.
Of course.
My father and my coach. And I go there and I meet the Muppet people. Bonnie Erickson, one of Jim Henson's original designers, recognized the Phillies did a lot of wacky things, but they believed that the wackiness was an opening to teach non-baseball fans how to love baseball. So now I realize, oh my gosh, this is serious. I hope I know what I'm doing. And the costume was delayed in its delivery. So after that day in New York, I didn't see it or try it on until the very first day. I was supposed to go out, and as Bill Giles, my boss at the time, said, just go have a good time, show up. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Our Philadelphia fans, they're not going to see a Philadelphia fan that I was. They're going to see a Muppet.
Yes.
Maybe they'll set me on fire. And we went out, and because my boss, Bill Giles, an enlightened leader, said, look, you don't have to worry about anything else other than having fun.
Amazing.
And as a college student, I got so excited. He said, G-rated fun, David.
Of course. Yes.
Keep it within the family realm.
Yep.
And I went out and that's what I did. I realized when I got tired, I should take a break. Yeah. And then I realized from a performance standpoint, if everybody had access to the Phanatic all the time, he wouldn't be special. So it was little appearances here and there around the stadium. And that has led to 48 years. The Phanatic just turned 48 years old this past April 25th. he's not a mascot for the Phillies. He's not a mascot for the city of Philadelphia. He's become this beacon of hope and love for people because of his success. He's traveled all over the country.
Yes.
You'll appreciate that because in my keynote, I say, he's been to the Galapagos Islands. He's been to South America. He's been to the Far East. He's been to Australia. He's even been to Canada.
Oh my goodness.
That means you've been everywhere, right?
Yes.
So that was just unbelievable, beautiful life.
Yeah.
And not knowing, I wasn't present, unfortunately. I have to go back and that's the work I've been doing is recognizing truly why the Phanatic was so powerful. He was a random act of kindness machine, continues today.
Yes.
And he creates joy for people no matter where they are in their lives. And that's really powerful. And I was lucky to be a part of it.
Oh my goodness, Dave, thank you for sharing just part of that origin story of the Phillie Phanatic. And for folks, it's funny. It's like when you think about Philadelphia, like this is literally, it's the green guy, right? It's the green guy who's rolling around, who's being silly, playful. And again, just to know that was you under that costume for, I believe, 16 seasons. Was it 16 years that you were in that role? And again, just this idea, I love what you talked about where you were like peppering joy and play. It wasn't that you were there the entire time, start to finish for all the innings. It was, you knew how to ebb and flow and come in. And I love everything about that. And just to think how significant it is that you were part of the start of one of the most, if not one of the most recognized mascots in all of professional sport. That's a pretty cool origin story to have in your back pocket, my friend.
Yeah. And it is phenomenal what it produced for Philadelphia and for the world. It's going to be going on well after I'm gone.
Yeah.
The players come and go, but the Phanatic is going to be there. And it's wonderful to get the credit. I always say, I feel like I get too much credit, but it was because of my boss and the Phillies, and they believed in silliness. They knew the power of silliness or what I call the power of fun.
Yeah.
And they invested in it and they cared for it. And that's why the Phanatic is still doing it today.
Which is just so amazing. I love all of that. And as somebody who studies resiliency, one of the pillars we talk about is humor, that even when things are hard, it's so important that we stay connected to that through line of joy and play and merriment. And one of the things, Dave, I see right now for a lot of folks is that they think that there's so much bad things that are happening in the world, which we know are true. We know the world is very unwell. And, should we be even having fun or play or sport or merriment? Because it almost as if this idea is the world is heavy, so we should be serious. And I try to bring to the conversation that, no, that's exactly when we need it the most. That connects us. It gives us a sense of community. It creates a sense of belonging that we can get behind our favorite sports teams. We get behind our mascots, and it helps, if anything, just pause some of the heaviness right now. So in your experience, when, the world again continues to be unwell, help me understand how you invite people into the idea of play and joy and silliness, especially again, when things are pretty bumpy.
Yeah, I think it's so important because I 100% agree. I believe everything that happens in the world, good and bad, are put there for us to understand what would be the best way to respond to it. And that takes a lot of hard work. But I try to simplify it. I talk about a process called the power of fun, but I introduce it in a slide that just says fun. And I say, look at that and think about what that means to you. And then I say, stop, put your mindset of a child in place. And when you look at that with the mindset of a child, you will look at fun as oxygen, that you can't survive without it. And as you know, our mindset of a child gets weeded out, erased, if you will, to try to become, a professional, an adult. But part of this opening to understand how powerful and important silliness and fun and play is to put your mindset of a child in place. And then, and I talk about fun as it's a force, because you have to believe that it's vitally important. It's universal. So it works at any time in your life. So you can have powerful fun at a surprise birthday party. You can also have powerful fun at a funeral, because the Phanatic appeared at hundreds of funerals. And when we first went there, I came back and said, hey, the Phanatic puts the FUN in funeral because it was it. And I will say he wasn't a pallbearer, Robyne. He was brought in when people were, celebrating this life well lived. And these would be Phillies fans or Philadelphia sports fans. And the Phanatic would come in and be a huge celebration.
Yeah.
Or he walked into a hospital room where a family is dealing with tragedy that we couldn't imagine.
Yes.
And there would be hugs of celebration. There would be tears of joy. And then the parents would stop me before I left. And this was confusing to me because I didn't understand what was happening then. They said, thank you for giving us the best medicine we could have ever had. And I'm like walking out of there like, oh my gosh, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then the N, and this is the answer. The end in Powerful Fun stands for no, which is the pushback.
Yeah. Because
the fun that we normally think of is known fun. Powerful fun requires practice, a doing gap.
Yeah.
It's easy to know in life. It's really hard to do it. So you have to move across and understand that powerful fun is iterated, designed, and created specifically for the moment that you're in.
Yes.
So if you're dealing with tragedy, what is the powerful fun that you'll create for you? And it's individual, just like practicing happiness. Everyone's a little different. So you have to find out what that means. And so I try to simplify it, Robyne. And still to this day, I'm trying to navigate it.
Yes.
My wife always reminds me media has dubbed me the hero of happiness. And when I'm not listening to my practice, she goes, okay, Mr. Hero of Happiness.
Yes.
Maybe you should practice what you preach. So it's an ongoing effort and it takes hard work and practice. But when you do it, the payoff is to understand that not to waste our suffering, not to waste our joy. It's all part of what we're going to see in life.
Yeah. Dave, that's absolutely beautiful. And as you were describing, the Phanatic showing up at a funeral, I just imagined, and again, it's just a kind of an image that came to my mind of like this, grieving family that has experienced loss. And as you and I chatted before we hit record, you and I both have experienced loss. So we know the heaviness of grief. And I just imagine a lifelong fan, like a deep Philly fan, like in their bones, and knowing that the Phanatic came to the funeral. Like, I just imagine the joy and just like, I'm even feeling teary, just even imagining the scenario of knowing that like, damn, dad wouldn't have believed this, or like, holy goodness, who would have ever imagined?
Yeah.
And in just that deep, dark, like absolute vastness of grief, that the Phanatic like gave them a core memory that isn't just about like having fun. It was literally about like, that will go into their story when they think in the future about that loss, that the Phanatic put just this bright spot in a very, very dark sky.
You just honestly, you just gave me chills as if I'm listening to my favorite performer singing. I got all these chills when you said that. And the reason why is that early in my career, when I was doing this, I was working, right? This was my job. I was working and I was living the most beautiful life, from, growing up in that little town in Newark, Delaware, being special, and then literally figuratively falling into this job. That was just so much fun. I was getting paid a lot of money. The Phillies were very good. Took very good care of me, but I was working, right? And I was not present to see what was really happening, until, life got ugly for me. And I think that presence, and if that's what I talk to my kids about and I talk to audiences about, is that you just do your best to be present, because these things are happening all around you now, and you'll find the times that you were present were the ones where you learned the most and you absorbed the most. And that was the only thing I regret, was I was not very present for those 16 years. It took me many years afterwards to really understand what was happening.
Yeah, fair. Absolutely, Dave. I appreciate that perspective. And also just to hold that space that, as a young adult, we haven't quite got that figured out yet. And that's part of it. And the idea is, yes, you had all this exposure to these amazing experiences in these moments. And I do think that's really, really normal that, you kind of fast forward a decade and you look back and just be like, wow, that was big. And, if thinking of that young 20-year-old in that role, those would probably be big experiences and opportunities that it would be even hard to process and make sense of and be present for. So I think the gift is that you have the ability to look at it now and recognize that. But my gosh, just to think about what that would have been like as a young man, with that being kind of your entry job into the world, that you get to be part of this story is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That sounds like the best explanation I've had in a while about what was happening. And life is wasted on the young.
Of course. Yeah.
And I certainly lived that. But that's why I really think the purpose I have is to be with you today, to have the opportunity. It's brilliant and wonderful to have a job where you're fulfilling what you feel is your purpose and you're driving revenue doing it. I mean,
of course.
One of my prayers all the time is to say, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling to get back is, yes, you're supposed to be doing this. And it's fine that people are grateful for you doing it. Just make sure you repay that gratitude. And
totally.
And it's that cycle of kindness and gratitude that continues to perpetuate. I'm 70 now and I'm just as happy as I've ever been. And there are still some ugly things going on, both in my life and my social connections, and also, like you say, in the world. But that's not going to stop. Mm-hmm. We just have to continue to be thrilled that things are going well when they're going well.
100%. That's beautifully said. And my goodness, just to think about that dual truth, that things can still be hard and difficult and bumpy and ugly at times, that messiness. And also concurrently, there is that through line of joy and play, of heart, of merriment, that makes all of it seem to make it possible that we're able to persist and keep showing up. Dave, one of the things you mentioned right before, again, we hit record, is you shared an experience about being told about this idea of false hope and that kind of fear of not getting our hopes up. And to me, there's this very important intersection between possibility and joy and good, and also a practice of hope. And I was wondering if you can tell us just a wee bit about that experience so we can unpack it together.
Yeah, my beautiful life. I like to say my Leave It to Beaver life. And, you can look up Leave It to Beaver and see that in that 30-minute segment, you've got, Ward and June and Wally and the Beav, and they solve the world's problems in 30 minutes. But that's truly what I was living. And then I got punched right in the face when my mom got diagnosed with a grade 4 glioblastoma brain tumor.
My gosh.
And we were told by a doctor in a 15-minute conversation, your mom's got 8 months to live. Just, casually. And I don't fault this human being, because he was a talented surgeon. He was young. We were lucky to have him in that regard. Yeah. But in the moment, he said, I don't want to give you false hope. And it didn't hit me right away, because I was, that surreal, bitter, cold feeling. And my brother, we were all together, my brother and sister and my dad and mom were all there. I got to look at my mom's face. She was accepting this because she was an old school woman, and this was the Lord, not a doctor. Yeah. And then I looked back and said, there's no such thing as false hope. We're either going to have it or we're not. And so I chose to believe in hope, knowing that we were going to lose our mom before we wanted to say goodbye to her. And she was our front woman behind the scenes, Robyne.
Yes. I get it.
My dad got all the attention, but Tubby didn't do what Tubby wanted if Susie, didn't want it done. And she just was, such a force. Yeah. So we knew we were going to lose her, but my hope was that I was going to have this opportunity to get to know her. And, she went deaf when I was 3 years old. So I realized that all of the work I was doing that I was thinking anybody could do was driven by thousands of hours of practice of nonverbal communication from 3 on to be able to communicate with mom. She built a whole career working for the deaf community, teaching deaf kids that their deafness was not an excuse not to become a whole and complete person.
Beautiful.
And so I was dealing with the brutality of life. And just shortly after my mom passed away, my marriage fell apart. My young 2-month-old son, Kyle, was gone. And it was ugly and I was hopeless and I wanted to quit this job.
Yeah.
How can I work at silliness
Yeah.
when I've lost hope, when I felt like there was no hope?
Yeah.
And that's when the Phanatic's personality was there to lift me up, because I couldn't quit until I finished some appearances I had to do.
Yes.
And that's when I finally paid attention, Robyne. I went,
Wow.
oh, wait, I don't need to think about self-harm anymore, because, that felt like a warm blanket. That's how scary that is. It felt, the idea of stopping this pain was like a warm blanket. But when I had that little tick above hopelessness that the Phanatic gave me, I realized, no, this is what I need to do. I'm giving, and then I'm receiving this wonderful generosity and joy. And then the hope came back. And that's, for me, I look at it and said, my mom gave me a skill set that created a personality that actually saved me from having to watch her succumb to brain cancer. It's so I like to talk about my mom as my biggest hero, where my dad, certainly was my hero, but it was my mom that just, did all those things for me after she was gone. It is such a wonderful lesson for me to live. And whenever I'm whining and complaining, I just go back to, to my mom would be waving her finger. I go, that's not the way you're supposed to do it. And it brings me back to center.
That's, oh my gosh. First and foremost, thank you for sharing part of your story about the power of the relationship with your mom and how significant she was to your family system. And, I just imagine, again, just this, how that connection point each and every one of you had in that relationship with her. And even just to think about the time, right? Historically, when we think about the time when she was here, the fact that she was that kind of that pillar of your family and how significant that was. And again, just that notion of being told that you're going to lose that member of your family, or in such a dramatic and such a scary way, especially that notion of the people we care about so deeply, knowing that they will be in pain. It's awful. And the fact that in that moment, you're just being crushed by life, right? With the loss of your mother, and then the relationship and all of these things. And, I just think it gives us such interesting pause to think about, people that would be looking at you performing and doing your job. They would probably have no idea that under that costume, under the mask, is someone who is feeling the weight of the world and just feels so broken. Yet you are still able to be of service and show up. And in the act of being of service to others, it was giving you the opportunity to also heal and to process. And that's a very powerful testament to the lessons that our moms leave with us. And I just really appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thank you. This is the reason why I was looking forward to talking to you. It's like, it's therapy. And it all started with with this discussion about hope. And what's beautiful now is hope, fun, silliness, joy, not wasting suffering, sucking the marrow out of the joyful moments. Those mean so much to me. And that's why in researching you and reading about you and I just ordered your book. I hope so, because it's such great stuff you're doing.
Thank you.
And your opportunity to get in front of audiences and speaking. As speakers, we love to perform, but when you're walking off the stage, and I'm sure people are coming up to you and say, thank you for this. Thank you. This means, this is what it means to me. And then they become vulnerable. So, I knew I was going to get this feeling. I will make you my something good today, because that's one of the things that we talk about is in daily conversation. Don't say, hey, how are you doing? Say, tell me something good. So I get to talk about Robyne and this conversation.
Well, that's very generous, and thank you. And again, I was looking forward this for all of the reasons that you mentioned. I love seeing that through line of the place of play and silliness and joy. And the other part, as a huge sports fan, like, I love my mascots. And so when your name came across, I was just like, shut the front door. I was so excited, even to the point where it was funny. When my oldest son was making decisions about going to university, I said to him, the mascot at this one particular university, the mascot's name was Hunter, and our oldest son, his name is Hunter. And I'm like, dude, I don't think it can be more obvious. The mascot is Hunter. Clearly you belong there. He didn't end up going to that school, but shout out to Ontario Tech. But again, we love the mascots. Like, it is silly and it is fun. I love when the mascots right now get on social media and like talk beef to each other. Like all of the different kind of things. Like, again, it's just it's such a wonderful time to be able to just slow down and pause and appreciate just some of the lightness that these opportunities around, again, sports, mascots, sharing, learning, again, not wasting these moments. It just offers us. It feels like a wee bit of a playbook on how we can show up each and every day, which I very much appreciate. So a burning question I have as you shared this is, if we have somebody who's listening right now and says, I am not fun. I don't find fun. My life is a chore. Like, it's like, it just feels like an abyss. Like, nothing feels fun, joy, any of that anymore. Where do they start? Where can we even just start to like create that little flicker to help them feel some of what we're talking about here? Because I think it is very much what the world needs right now.
Yeah. And I think that when people are struggling, they go back to the realm of the fun that we know.
Yes.
And I'm using fun as the cup that holds,
Yes.
joy, the practice of happiness, all of those things. So what they're looking for is a tick above, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're in the abyss, they want to be a tick above the abyss. And Dr. Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology, said, when I was a psychiatrist, our job was to make the miserable less miserable.
Yes.
But that was a good place to be, because it's a finger hold.
Yes.
In mountain climbing, you're trying to find that finger hold, and that's the thing that balances you. And before you take the next move with your feet and your hands. So I would say to people, find whatever break that you can. It can be as simple as, I found a flow state in hand pulling out dandelions, which doesn't get rid of dandelions. It gets rid of one, right?
Yeah.
But I hated them so much that I got great joy in digging and pulling that whole root out. And for me, when I did that in my backyard, I found that I disappeared for a half an hour. So what is it that will allow your mind to disappear? I had the beauty of becoming another personality.
Yeah.
I was blessed with that. Most of us don't. So when you are at your worst, is there anything at all that can distract you for just a moment or two? And it can be reading. It could be opening the front door, meaning just go out, walk. It could be meditation. It could be grounding. I mean, there's so many things that it could be, but it needs to be something that as you think about it, it feels right to you in your heart. This is, yes, I love this. I'm going to do this. What you want to do is find that thing and make sure, if only for 5 minutes, you do that. And that's the finger hold, because your job is to get a tick above the abyss. And then once you do that, you obviously should make sure that the most important thing you can do when you're in the abyss is to reach out to what Dr. Brooks calls a useless friend. That's right. A friend that always makes you laugh, that there's no transactional effect in that relationship. It's just, you love to be around each other, and you need to reach out. That was my keystone call to action in my mental health awareness speaking tour this May, was just reach out, get a hold of somebody. And as people who practice this and knows this, and then when you get into the abyss, you need to try to reach out for someone. So it's one simple step that will distract you from that abyss, and then trying to build blocks on top of that. So for a finger hold after a finger hold, till months, maybe a year, you finally go, oh, it was great that I did that. So it's not easy. And you need help. You need, whether it's a clinician or a useless friend, or you're understanding that it's vitally important for you to give your mind a break from the abyss.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such wise counsel. I very much appreciate that. And again, one of the, things I think really gets in people's way or creates a wee bit of a blockage, Dave, is that they go from like upset or hopeless or miserable, and they think that they have to get to happy, joy filled and merry. And what I love that you're describing with your analogy of the finger hold, it's like literally just like an inch in the right direction. right? It's just that idea. And it reminds me of that kind of notion. I recently gave an address. Felt very fortunate. I was bestowed an honorary degree, which was so special. And one of the things that I shared with the graduates was this idea that like the compass was invented before the clock, and timing doesn't matter. Direction is so important, and just that notion of what's one thing that will put you on the right direction, and you don't even have to know the destination. It's just knowing what intuitively feels like this is right. And another practice that I share when I'm working with people one-on-one, if they're really stuck, is to ask them, like, do a wee bit of time travel and just like go back to where did you ever have fun? Because I believe, again, intuitively as children, we do this very naturally. And so, getting them to do a little bit of time travel and just spend some time doing, like, go to your littlest self. And, maybe it literally was sitting on the curb with a stick digging in the ground. Like, literally go back to a time when the worries of the world weren't weighing you down. Go back to a time when you weren't carrying the weight of the world on those shoulders. And it's so interesting, as you can actually watch, and I'm sure you've seen this in your practice as well, is that you have these hard stoic type people who are no fun allowed, and then all of a sudden they go on that little magical mystery tour to the past, and then you start to see that little smile, or just that little bit of lightness that, oh, I remember, playing catch with my buddies, or I remember, going fishing, or whatever that little childhood moment was when, again, the weight of the world wasn't weighing us down. And my invitation often is like, start there, right? Like you can literally go pick up a stick and sit on the curb in a park and just have that pattern interrupt of always trying to figure things out.
That's wonderful. I think the compass before the clock. I remember in the midst of the mess of the pandemic.
Yes.
I just had to return thousands and thousands of dollars of deposits for speaking engagements. I had no idea where to go, and I bumped into Michael Michalowicz talking about this, and he said, grab a piece of paper and put the letter A and circle it, and let's say that's where you are right now. Now, just draw a bunch of arrows on the paper out from A in whatever direction you want. And then he says, now go up and wherever on the paper you want, put the letter B and circle it. That's where you're supposed to be headed.
Yes.
How many arrows did you draw that are going directly to B? And in my case, there wasn't one.
Yeah.
And he said, this is why when you're at your worst, or when things are at worst, you also need to take a breath and pause.
Yes.
And stop, just stop, which is really hard, because when you're grieving, there's so much emotion and you're pulled in so many, and I always talk about it being cold, bitterly cold, and which is why I'm not up in Canada.
Yeah.
Because my wife always says, who lives in Buffalo? And I said, honey, there's a lot of places that north of Buffalo that are even worse. I said, yeah, but so, it's bitter cold. And I just always thought back to that, is that the pause in the midst of that grief will give you a chance to just take a deep breath, reflect, and then that's where you can think of the finger hole, whatever that is. So that's wonderful to hear about the compass, because you're in the midst of this. You don't know where you need to go. You don't know where you're going to be going. It's frightening because you may be deciding to do something where you won't go anymore. And that's, reaching out to somebody. Think of anything that would make you smile, or frankly, looking in the mirror and just practicing a smile, even if as hard as that might be, because, you get those hormones anyway.
That's right.
And that just that mind shift will go, I think I'm going to sit down and I'm going to sketch. I'm going to read. I'm going to go see that favorite movie again. That even if that movie makes you cry, it's okay. It's just, you got to do anything that you can. And you were just beautifully describing it with the compass before the clock, is that, you have to figure out where you should be going. And that takes time to take a pause.
Yeah.
And then think about what's the first little step.
Yeah, I appreciate that recap. Absolutely. And you can let your wife know, like, yes, Canada is pretty chilly, but let me tell you, I've been to Philly for a Monday night football game, and Hunter and I joke about the fact that This was literally the coldest either of us had ever been in our entire life. And it was a heck of a game. There you go. It was a heck of a game they were on. I believe it was, they were 11-0. They ended up losing that night for the first time. So this was about 5 years ago in the Philly Eagles season. And we left there quickly, let's say, because the fans were not happy campers. So we left there quite quickly. It wasn't quite, no, it's good. It wasn't quite the throwing snowballs at Santa moment, but people were pretty disappointed. But I tell you that when we joke about, it's like when we say, oh, it's cold today, Hunter will say it's not as cold as the Philly game. So we have that as our frame of reference that we go to.
And by the way, you mentioned throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. Let me explain to you the heart of a Phillies fan. Santa sucked that day, okay? Yeah. He was skinny, he was dirty, and he was drunk. He deserved the snowballs.
I love this. And I love just an identity around an entire city around, like, we don't put up with BS, right? You give us a bad Santa, we are going to have that moment. And I can just to digress for a moment, one of my favorite activities we do in our family, Dave, we do Mama Boy Weekend, because I want the boys to learn that being a mama boy is associated with amazing things, not a bad thing. So our thing have always been once a year, we go down and we check out an NFL game and an NBA game, and we have like the best time ever just for the weekend. And we've done this now, gosh, I guess Hunter and I and Jax are year 7 or 8 doing this. And the boys will say, like, the Philly was our favorite, like seeing the 76ers and then going to an Eagles game. And obviously it wasn't baseball season, but just your town, your community, it is fun. It's hardworking. It's honest. It's genuine. And the fact that so much joy comes out of a place where there's also strength, I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think you've also some of the resilience of Philadelphia is being, I say, 2 hours south of the den of iniquity, an hour and a half south of the heartbeat of our country, and we're just sitting in the middle of it, and I think we forget how important Philadelphia is, and it's a surrounding area where there's, the tri-state. There's so many states you get to in 20 minutes or less that just, become part of Philadelphia, even though that we're not. We're not in Philly proper. But yeah, I think we're a resilient city, and we are very kind here. It's, there are knuckleheads. I call it the 10% stupidity factor.
Yes.
And the reason why I know there's a 10% stupidity factor, because I've lived there before in my life. So we've all done it, right?
Yes.
So the knuckleheads are the ones that, get the notice.
Yeah.
And every city has knuckleheads.
Of course.
So it's no different in Philly like it is in any city, but we will embrace you, and we will love being with you. And as the Phanatic does, he's more upset with the Mets hat. He's not upset with the wearer. He's upset with the Mets hat. So the hat's going to get the abuse.
Yeah.
The fan will get an embrace and a photograph, and he'll get his hat back. It just might not be as clean as it was.
I love everything about this.
That's his personality, is that he's not upset with you. He's just upset with what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Here's a Phillies hat. Put that on.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. Well, Dave, thank you for bringing just, again, the ray of joy into this conversation. And again, I am so excited for people to take a deeper dive into your work and, again, learn more about your speaking and how they can bring you in to just bring this healthy dose of proactive joy into places that sometimes feel a wee bit heavy. So, Dave, I feel like wholeheartedly, I just want to say thank you for your service. You have serviced the hearts of so many people all around the world. I have never had a chance to be able to meet a mascot that I've admired for so many years in person, even virtually. So please know that this is so special for me, and I wish you and your family all the best and all the joy out there in the world to be had. Thank you for listening to this episode of Perspective. It means the world to me that you spent time listening to this idea, these conversations. Now, if you have found something useful or helpful, please share it with someone else. Something that I know it means the world to me to know when something has landed and then you pay it forward. Another way you can support the podcast is to rate and review this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting again very soon.